Hello all. I am sick and my son has COVID and I'm also super sick, but I am currently testing negative for COVID. So hopefully I'll be back by Wednesday. I have to stay home with my son for 2 days while he gets over it. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you guys Wednesday with a mask on so that I don't pass anything along to you guys. Today we're doing a benchmark number 1 review. You're going to take your benchmark quiz on Wednesday, and tomorrow you'll be practicing. Some of you are going to think that this is far too easy and you already know all this stuff, and some of you will need the review, and some of you maybe have always struggled with this. So you're going to have to help each other. You have to be patient and kind, and make sure we're all in the same spot so we can move forward. So we're talking about adding, subtracting, multiplying and dividing positive and negative numbers and fractions. First of all, if you're adding two positive numbers, you get a positive number. If you are adding two negative numbers, you get a more negative number. Hopefully you're watching this on your laptop with earbuds. Maybe you're watching it as a whole class, but make sure you're taking notes on this because you do need to have notes down. If you add a positive and a negative number, the sign is whichever absolute value is larger. Meaning, if I had like 7 plus a negative 9, the absolute value of the 9 is larger, so the answer is going to be negative. Here's a nice way to add and subtract, or add and subtract positive and negative numbers if you've struggled with this in the past. If you have 7 plus 9, it would be 7 positives, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then pairs, 1 positive and 1 negative cancel each other out. And you're left with 2 negatives. Those are the leftovers. Subtraction is just like addition. So let's say we had something like 5 minus 8. You can always change that minus into plus a negative, which makes it 5 positives, 8 negatives. 5 of them cancel out. So in this case, you have a negative 3. If you ever have 2 negatives in a row, something like this, 4 minus a negative 3, 2 negatives in a row make a positive, so that would be dash dash slash slash positive 7. And that should take care of all the adding and subtracting. Let's move on to multiplication and division. If you have a positive times a positive, you get a positive. If you have a negative times a negative, you also get a positive. Negative times a negative makes a positive. And if you have positive times a negative or a negative times a positive, both of those equal a negative. So if I have 5 times negative 5, I get negative 25. If I have negative 5 times a negative 5, I get positive 25. If I'm going too fast, you can always stop the video and slow down at any point. If you have a whole bunch of negatives, you count how many you have. 1, 2, 3. If it's an odd number of negatives, the answer is going to be negative. If it's an even number of negatives, the answer is going to be positive. So in this case, there's 3 negatives. 1 times 3 times 4 is 12. Okay. Now let's talk about fractions. I'm hoping that most of you remembered this stuff. But if you didn't, or if you've always struggled with it, this is your chance to practice. The quiz that's happening on Wednesday will be a no calculator quiz, and it's the only no calculator quiz that I give. So you will have to know these rules, but you won't have to know your times tables. The multiplication stuff isn't going to be too hard on there. I'm not going to definitely have nothing with no digits or anything like that. All right, let's talk about adding fractions. If I have 1/2 plus 2/3, that means since I'm adding, I need to have a common denominator. A common denominator means that both of these numbers have to go into this new number. So 2 and 3 both go into 6. To get 2 to 6, I had to multiply by 3. So to keep it even, I have to also multiply the top by 3. Or I guess the same ratio. I shouldn't use the word even. Here I had to multiply by 2 on the top and bottom, which is 4, which makes 7/6. Same thing if I'm doing subtraction. I still have to find a common denominator. Since this is the same problem, I'm just writing down the same stuff. And then it's like 3 plus a -4, which is a -1/6. Now, if you're multiplying fractions, you just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6. On this one, I would have to reduce, divide them both by 2, which would get me down to 1/3. So you just multiply the tops, multiply the bottoms. Another way to do multiplying fractions is to reduce as you go. So you might say, okay, I've got a 2 on the top and the bottom. I'm going to divide those both by 2 and make them 1s, which makes 1/3. It really doesn't matter if you reduce them afterwards or as you go. This is usually a little bit faster, but otherwise it doesn't really matter. The last thing with fractions is dividing them. Here it is called keep, switch, flip. So you keep the first fraction, you switch the division sign to a multiplication sign, and you flip the second fraction, which makes 3/4. Because now we're just multiplying across. So 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 2 is 4. Same rules apply with positives and negatives. A positive times a positive is a positive times a negative is a negative, and 2 negatives make a positive. All right, so you've got the rest of the hour to work on your assignment that I'm making due tomorrow, which was supposed to be due today, although I didn't communicate that clearly in all my classes, so I'm giving you a little extra time. Tomorrow we're going to do a kind of practice test with this stuff and working with a partner to make sure that you guys understand it. And then we'll do a benchmark quiz on Wednesday, just make sure we're all on the same page. If you don't pass the benchmark quiz, I will help you pass it, and you can you'll either work with a partner or work with me to make sure that you understand it eventually. You know, maybe everybody will pass it on the first shot by getting an 8, 9, or 10 out of 10 points, and if that's the case, awesome. But usually a few people need some practice, and it never hurts everybody to have a little bit of a reminder. So we'll move past this, quote, easy stuff for some of you soon, but for right now, we're making sure that we're all on the same page. I'll see you guys Wednesday, and yeah, so be good for the sub. Miss you. Bye.